Chapter 30-49. Hearing this, they were slightly startled. Venerable CK and Venerable Muaxian lost. And they even acknowledged the winner as their master. Yes, and at that time, it was 2 against 2. Hence, the 2 of them had 2 different masters. The disciple said. Who are they? Everyone knew that Venerable CK and Venerable Muaxian were the strongest venerables in the immortal sect. They were divine realm experts, so how could they lose to others? One is Fengzhou, and the other is Xianyuan Mose, the disciple said carefully in a low voice. They didn't dare to call the masters of CK and Muaxian by their names. One of them likes to wear red, while the other likes to wear black. I heard that the one in red is a woman, and she's also an alchemy venerable. They're a pair, and they came down from the immortal ascension stairs. Without a guide, one can only reach the top of the immortal ascension stairs with the strength of an immortal emperor. They were able to defeat Venerable CK and Venerable Muaxian, so they're not ordinary. The few of them sighed. They were very curious about the 2 people. However, none of them thought that the woman in red was the same as Feng 9. After all, they had never heard them call Feng 9 by her name ever since they started following them. They went downstairs and saw that she had finished eating, so they asked, Senior, when are we leaving? They had been resting the whole day. If they had taken the airship, they could have recuperated on the airship, so they wouldn't waste time here. Are you in a hurry? Fengzhou glanced at them. Hearing this, the few of them were slightly stunned. One of them saw her tone and said, There's no hurry. We just thought that if we were to set off, we could pack our things and make arrangements in advance. If Senior has something to deal with here, you can go ahead and do it. Who told you that I have something to do? Fengzhou looked at the man playfully. When the man's face turned red and he became nervous, she smiled and said, Aren't you injured? Take a good rest here. We haven't had much rest along the way. How can we just stay for one night in such a good inn? Her voice was neither fast nor slow, with a hint of a smile and teasing. Moreover, I don't even need to pay to stay in such a good inn. It's worth it. What's the harm in staying for 2 more days? Hearing this, the corners of everyone's mouths twitched. So she didn't leave because this inn was the most expensive and largest in the city, and she didn't have to pay for it. What kind of reason was this? Indeed, there were many eccentric experts. At this moment, one of the tiger beasts rushed in like the wind. Like a flash of light, it pounced into Fengzhou's arms. Seeing this, the others couldn't help but be surprised. Was it those 2 divine beasts? Just as they were about to see what the 2 inconspicuous divine beasts were up to, they saw the green-robed senior glance at them. Seeing this, they tactfully bowed and took their leave. Master, that old woman couldn't make it and died this morning. That woman was caught by the people from Beauty Restaurant when she was about to leave. The tiger beast lay in Fengzhou's arms and whispered. Wanyan Shisan heard this and couldn't help but glance at Fengzhou. This girl had really calculated it. But what was she going to do now? Chapter 30-50. Yes. The tiger beast responded and leaped outside. Just let the 2 of them go. Will it work? Wanyan Shisan asked. He felt that although the 2 were mythological beasts, they were no match for the experts of Beauty's Restaurant. Fengzhou drank the wine and said, Let's wait and see first. There's no rush. If you want to subdue a person, you have to wait until she has no way out. What's more, that woman is a little arrogant, so it's good to wear her down. My sister, do you want to go to the Carefree sect to take a look? She looked at Wanyan Shisan and asked. In fact, there are also children of my Wanyan family in the Carefree sect. After learning the news, I have already sent a message to my family and asked them to send someone to take a look. As for Master Qianhua, I have also sent a message to her. You don't have to worry about this. Wan Yenshir-san said, and then said, by the way, I also told the people of Blue Star Immortal Sect that the disciples upstairs are with us. They have already sent someone to pick us up. Feng Fengjiu played with the wine glass, and no one knew what he was thinking. When Wan Yenshir-san saw this, he grinned and asked, we have gained something from this trip. In any case, I am your 13th uncle. Tell me, when we go back, shouldn't you invite me to your house for a meal? Hearing this, Fengjiu glanced at him and said coldly, you are my sister's 13th uncle. My sister and I have become sworn sisters, but I don't recognize the other members of the Wanyan family as relatives. Sigh, forget about others, but we have fought side by side. I am also an elder. It's not too much for you to call me 13th uncle. Fengjiu looked at him up and down and said with a playful smile, 13th uncle. Sigh. What are you sigh about? Look at you, how do you look like an elder? You want me to call you 13th uncle? I don't think it's possible. She shook her head with a look of disgust. The corner of Wan Yenshir-san's mouth twitched. He looked at her speechlessly, but he didn't hesitate and stood up, all right then. I don't expect anything. I know you will definitely go out later, so I will go out by myself. He stood up, stretched and walked out, and asked, by the way, do you need me to buy something for you when I go shopping? Fengjiu looked at him and said with a smile, then I'll have to trouble you to bring me some pastries. No problem. He waved his hand and walked out of the inn. Not long after he left, Fengjiu also left, leaving only a few disciples in the inn's main building who were looking out of the window. And you. And the name suits you very well. Even the beauties in my beauty's pavilion can't compare to your zither skills. The middle-aged man's voice paused. He looked at the scar at the corner of her eyes and eyebrows with pity. What a pity, what a pity. A good beauty like you has such a flaw. I didn't expect that the people in my beauty pavilion would make an error in judgment and call you the number one beauty. What a shame to my beauty pavilion. What do you want? She asked coldly. There was no fear in her eyes. She didn't struggle because she knew that even if she struggled, it would be futile. Everyone here was stronger than her. Chapter 30-51. He looked at her and stared at the scar between her eyebrows, saying, with your looks, it's impossible for you to appear in front of others, so you can only be a guqin player behind the scenes. From today onwards, you're a member of our beauty house. He paused and narrowed his eyes with a hint of danger. However, in order to punish you for scheming against our beauty house, we're going to imprint a slave mark on your face. I'm sure you don't have any objections, right? As he spoke, he waved his hand and signaled for someone to bring over the slave mark. As long as this mark was imprinted on her face, it would be branded as a slave mark that would never be removed for the rest of her life. Seeing a cultivator bring over the slave mark, Qin Xian's eyes finally showed a trace of panic. You have no right to do this. I can return the prize to you. Hee, do you think our beauty house is short of something like that? The middle-aged man sneered and stared at her. This is the price you have to pay for scheming against our beauty house. I want you to know that there are some people you can't provoke or scheme against. Seeing the middle-aged man take the slave mark from another cultivator and approach her step by step, she couldn't help but struggle. However, she couldn't break free from the cultivator's restraints as she was forcefully held down. You also have a scar on your face, so I'll imprint a slave mark on your forehead. As the middle-aged man spoke, he lifted a strand of her hair that had fallen to one side and was about to imprint the mark on her forehead. Roar! The tiger beast that had been squatting on the fence for a long time suddenly roared and its small body pounced down. It raised its sharp claws and clawed at the middle-aged man holding the mark. Hiss! The middle-aged man gasped in pain and blood seeped out of his hand, causing the mark in his hand to fall to the ground. Just as he retreated, the tiger beast waved its sharp claws at the cultivators holding down Chin Axian. Seeing an opportunity, Chin Axian broke free from their restraints and quickly got up and retreated to the side. She looked at the tiger beast in surprise and recognized the kitten-like pet beast as the man in green robes. But, didn't they leave already? Why was this kitten still following her here? Where did this little beast come from? Kill it for me. The middle-aged man held his injured hand and ordered fiercely. In an instant, the surrounding cultivators surrounded them, forcing the man and beast into a corner. Looking at the humans who were walking towards it with weapons in hand, the tiger beast let out a low roar. In the next moment, its body rapidly expanded and returned to its original powerful size. Roar! A beastly roar came out and shook the entire beauty pavilion. Everyone in the city heard the beastly roar. After all, the roar of a divine beast was very loud. Almost as soon as the roar came out, the cultivators in the small city were startled, especially some small pets and small beasts. They all trembled and hid in the bosom of their masters, or trembled and knelt on the ground. God divine beast! The middle-aged man was startled. He quickly retreated and looked at the mythological beast that had suddenly returned to its original form. His eyes widened in shock. Hiss! It really was a divine beast. Moreover, it was a tiger-type divine beast of the 6th order. Where did he come from? Chapter 3052. Quick! Capture this divine beast. I'll reward you handsomely, he said excitedly as he stepped back, allowing the other cultivators to step forward. However, at this moment, an untimely voice sounded in everyone's ears. How lively! Hearing this voice, the tiger beast that was baring its fangs and flashing its claws and was about to pounce forward suddenly became as docile as a kitten. It wagged its tail and came to the corner of the wall, looking at its master who was sitting on the wall with excitement in its eyes. Chin Axian was also startled when she heard this voice. She looked at the man in green who had suddenly appeared and her eyes moved slightly. Who are you? The middle-aged man's face darkened and he raised his hand to signal everyone to step back. When he saw the divine beast sitting docilely in the corner where the man was sitting, his heart couldn't help but tremble. Fingzhou, who was sitting on the wall, glanced at him and said with a smile that wasn't a smile, You want to touch my people and capture my little beast, but you still ask who I am? Your people. Your little beast. Hee, this woman is a resident of this city and has lived here for only a few years. This divine beast hasn't been contracted yet, so how can you say that it's yours? The middle-aged man sneered. When he saw that Fingzhou was alone and was about to order his men to attack, he caught a glimpse of a black and white kitten in her arms from the corner of his eye. His heart couldn't help but jump. Another divine beast. The one just now also looked like this. I have another one here, I wonder if it's also yours. Fingzhou smiled and patted the tiger beast in her arms. The tiger beast lying in her arms jumped down and with a flash of light, it returned to its original size. The divine beast's body was huge and strong, and the tiger beast's body was even more majestic and domineering. When these two fierce tigers with white fur and black tiger stripes stood in front of them, the divine beast's powerful aura filled the air and shocked them greatly. A divine beast was already extremely rare, let alone a tiger beast that was the king of beasts. And there were two of them. Looking at the two tiger beasts, the middle-aged man was so excited that his eyes turned red and greed emerged in his eyes. Chin Axian saw the greed in the middle-aged man's eyes and couldn't help but worry. She couldn't bear to let a completely unrelated young master offend a power like the beauty pavilion for her, so she immediately said, Young master, leave quickly. The beauty brothel's influence is enormous, far beyond what young master can imagine. Young master, please don't get into trouble for Chin Axian. Hearing this, Fengjiu looked at Qin Xan and smiled. He didn't say anything. Instead, he looked at the middle-aged man and asked jokingly, "Did you see it clearly? Are these two divine beasts yours?" The middle-aged man's eyes flashed with killing intent. He stared at Fengjiu and said gloomily, "It's a divine beast that sneaked out of our beauty house. You brat! How dare you covet our beauty pavilion's divine beast? Someone come! Kill this brat on the spot." Qin Axian was shocked and her face turned pale. However, when she raised her head to look at the azure-robed man, she saw that he was still sitting leisurely on the wall. "Kill him on the spot. That's a good idea." Chapter 3053. What are you doing? Quickly let him go. Let him go and you can still live. Otherwise, only death awaits you. The surrounding cultivators shouted, all of them staring at Fengjiu, their swords drawn, ready to strike at any time. However, Fengjiu glanced at them indifferently, tightening his grip on the middle-aged man's neck. "You think I don't dare to kill you?" Her voice was slow and gentle, but it made people shiver. "If you kill me, you won't be able to live either." The middle-aged man was not afraid, as if he was sure that she would not dare to kill him. Even though his throat was being choked, making it hard for him to breathe, he still forced out each word. Fengjiu raised an eyebrow, and with a wave of his sleeve, Swallow Cloud roared and leapt out from the void, like a king standing in the middle, looking down on the surrounding cultivators. When his sharp and bloodthirsty gaze landed on the two tiger beasts, he paused. Hiss! Super, sacred beast. This is a sacred beast. Heavens! I actually saw a sacred beast. There really is a sacred beast in this world. The cultivators gasped in shock. The sacred beast's aura caused their legs to tremble, and they could not help but retreat. In this small backyard, there were two sacred beasts and a sacred beast. Even if they wanted to destroy the beauty's restaurant, no one would be able to stop them. When he saw another sacred beast appear, the middle-aged man started to panic, his face turned pale, and his arms hung limply. Because of this, his entire body was lifted up by Fengjiu, as if he was choking on his breath. If there were two sacred beasts, perhaps he could still try to take this man down, but with another sacred beast, he knew that he had offended someone he should not have offended. What kind of person would have two sacred beasts and a sacred beast? How could he offend such a person? How could he give the order to kill him? Thinking of this, his face turned ashen. Young master, please spare my life," he said with difficulty, his eyes filled with fear. "Spare your life? Don't you think it's too late?" Fengjiu tightened her grip, and with a crack, she broke his neck. With a groan, the middle-aged man stopped breathing on the spot. His eyes were wide open in fear as he stared ahead. Fengjiu raised his hand and threw the man away. Bang! The body was thrown in the middle of the yard, but no one dared to step forward. They just stepped back step by step. Two divine beasts, one sacred beast, in addition to this person's unfathomable strength, who would dare to go forward to seek death. Qin Axian stared blankly at the azure-robed man. She didn't expect that he would actually kill the middle-aged man. That man was the manager of the beauty house. Now that he killed the middle-aged man, she was afraid that the people of the beauty house would not let him go. "Young master." An old voice sounded at this moment. When the guards in the courtyard heard this voice, they couldn't help but let out a sigh of relief. Fengjiu looked towards the direction of the voice and saw a few old men walking out quickly. When they saw the body in the courtyard, their eyes narrowed and their eyebrows furrowed. "Young master, why did you kill people in our beauty house?" As they spoke, the old man's eyes quietly looked towards the two sacred beasts and the sacred beast. Even though he had heard the guards mention it, he was still shocked. Chapter 3054. Your people from Beauty's Pavilion captured my people, and even said that my little beast was from your Beauty's Pavilion, and wanted to take it by force. You even gave the order to kill me to silence me. What, can't I kill him? Her clear eyes were cold as she looked at them. Her voice was soft, but it made the hearts of the people in Beauty's Pavilion tremble. They could faintly feel the other party's killing intent. Or, if I kill him, you will also issue a kill order to me. If that's the case, I won't introduce you. Her lips curled up as she glanced at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. Hearing this, how could the elders not understand her meaning? The other party had 3 powerful divine beasts here and their strength was unfathomable. If they offended this person for the sake of a dead person, they were afraid that they wouldn't be able to predict what would happen in the end. Even if they wanted to make a move against this person, they would have to report it to their superiors and have them send someone down. At this moment, they looked at each other and one of them smiled. Young master is joking. That manager is usually a bit overbearing. If he has offended young master in any way, please don't take offense. So you're saying that I can take this person away? Fengjiu raised his eyebrows as he looked at them. Hee, of course, young master's person will naturally be taken away by young master. The elder said with a smile. So you're saying that these 2 divine beasts didn't come from your Beauty's Pavilion? She glanced at them with a smile that wasn't a smile. The elder wiped the cold sweat from his forehead and smiled. Young master is joking. These divine beasts naturally belong to young master. Hearing this, Fengjiu brushed his sleeves and put the swallow cloud back into his space. He turned around and walked out. The 2 divine beasts behind him turned back into 2 kittens and swaggered out while wagging their tails. Qin Axan paused for a moment and glanced at the people from Beauty's Pavilion before leaving as well. After they left, the elders looked at each other and said to the cultivators around them, "Clean up and give him a proper burial." Yes. The cultivators responded and carried the corpse away. What do you think? One of the elders asked the other 2. The other 2 stroked their beards and pondered. They said, this person is definitely not an ordinary person. He has 2 divine beasts and a sacred beast by his side. I'm afraid that he won't be easy to deal with. If we fight against him, I think that he will be a formidable opponent. That may be the case, but this person killed the manager of our beauty pavilion. His actions are indeed arrogant. If we don't pursue the matter, wouldn't it be? Investigate. How to investigate? Now, who in our building dares to go against him? From the way I see it, it was not easy for us to send this person away. All we have lost is that manager. It is best to keep this matter under wraps. Otherwise, it will not benefit our beauty house at all if this matter blows up. Since that's the case, let's report this matter to the higher-ups. As for how to deal with it, that will depend on the arrangements of the higher-ups. What we need to do now is to investigate this person's background before we know what to do next. Several people discussed in the backyard. Not long after, they each took action to arrange things. On the other side, Qin Xian followed the 2 little beasts out of Beauty's pavilion. From time to time, she would look at the figure walking in front of her. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know where to start, so she just followed quietly. Chapter 3055. Young Master saved me. As long as young master doesn't despise Qin Xian for being ugly, Qin Xian is willing to stay by young master's side. She looked at the man in green in front of her. This was the first time she said such words to a man. Her ears were faintly burning. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. Have you thought it through? Yes. Now that she was all alone, where else could she go? Go to that clan. No, she would never step into that clan. She would never acknowledge them. All right. I'll take you to buy 2 sets of clothes to change into, Fengzhou said as he walked forward. Qin Axian was startled for a moment before following behind him. When she arrived at the inn after buying 2 sets of clothes, she was sent to a side room to change. She took the clothes into the room and walked to the prepared hot water. She was in a daze as she sat beside the tub in a daze for a while. Only then did she take off her clothes and soak herself in the water. Downstairs, Fengzhou was drinking wine and eating appetizers when he saw Wan Yanshur-san come in with a few boxes of pastries. Supper. Not bad, I'll accompany you for a drink or two. He placed the pastries on the table and said, Here, have a taste of these pastries. I asked someone and went to the best pastry shop in the city to buy them. Thank you, Fengzhou said with a smile. He first put away the pastries and poured a cup of wine for him. Drink a few cups and rest early. We'll be on our way tomorrow. It had been a few days since they left. She really missed little Hao at home. You're going back. You've settled the matter. You got that woman? Wan Yanshur-san asked in surprise. Fengzhou rolled his eyes. What do you mean by got that woman? You make it sound like a bandit. She took a sip of wine and a bite of appetizers before saying, I brought her back. I even killed the manager of beauty restaurant. Cough, cough. Wan Yanshur-san, who was drinking, choked when he heard this. He patted his chest and coughed twice. He stared at Fengzhou and said, You said you killed the manager of Beauty Pavilion? Yes, Fengzhou replied. You don't have to worry. It's fine. He glared at her and said, Aren't you a little too bold? I already told you that the Beauty Pavilion is very powerful. There are beauty pavilions in every city. You actually went to provoke them. Are you tired of living? Young master. Qin Axian came down from the second floor. She had changed into a blue and white dress. It was simple and elegant. A strand of hair fell down. The scar at the corner of her eye was drawn like a delicate flower. It added a bit of charm to her delicate face. Fengzhou looked at her and nodded with satisfaction. Not bad. You still look pleasing to the eye like this. She nodded and said to her, Sit down and eat with us. Yes. Qin Axian replied and sat down at the table. She saw Wan Yanshur-san staring at her, but she didn't look at him. She poured a cup of wine and took a sip. Then she picked up some food and ate. You'll leave tomorrow morning. Remember to get up early and prepare, Fengzhou said. Then, as if she remembered something, she said to Wan Yanshur-san, Her name is Qin Axian. Oh. Chapter 3056. Seeing Qin sitting with the two of them, she didn't show any signs of uneasiness. Similarly, she sat there quietly, eating and standing. She was so quiet that she looked like a painting. In addition to that, she had an extraordinary appearance. It had to be said that she was very pleasing to the eyes. After a simple introduction, Qin Axian ate some food and went back to her room to rest. Fengzhou and Wan Yanshur-san were left drinking. Although her face is disfigured, if it's so well painted, it's still not bad. Aren't you afraid that bringing her around will cause trouble? Wan Yanshur-san looked at her, somewhat unable to understand what she was thinking. What did this woman named Qin Axian have that made her go through so much trouble? Fengzhou smiled faintly. I've never been a person who's afraid of trouble. Seeing this, he chuckled. That's true. I guess only you, Fengzhou, would dare to take 2 mythological beasts to the beauty pavilion and kill the manager of the beauty pavilion. No one would dare to pursue the matter after you brought her back. In the end, it's still the benefits of being strong. Fengzhou sipped his wine and didn't say anything. In this world, wasn't the strong revered? Only when one was strong would no one dare to make a move. The next morning, when the disciples of the immortal sect saw the woman in a blue and white dress appear beside them, they couldn't help but be stunned. This woman was really beautiful, and her temperament was really excellent. Fengjiu glanced at them, the corners of her lips curling up slightly, and she smiled faintly. Beautiful people and beautiful things would always attract people's attention. This was human nature. "Let's go," she said and looked at Wang Yanshi-san. "Yes." The group of people followed them out of the inn and out of the city. A handsome man and a beautiful woman walking together, unsurprisingly, attracted the attention of many people. However, although those people curiously sized them up, no one dared to go up and provoke them. After all, whether it was temperament, clothes, or strength, they were enough to shock others. When they reached the outskirts of the city, Fengjiu waved his hand and a spaceship appeared in front of everyone. The disciples of the immortal sect had already seen her before, so it wasn't strange at all. But this was the first time Qin Axan had seen her. She couldn't help but glance at her a few more times, secretly guessing just what her master's background was. After boarding the spaceship, Wang Yanshi-san lazily leaned back and looked at Qin Axan. He smiled and said, "Qin Axan, since we have nothing to do, why don't you play a song for us to listen to?" Qin Axan did not respond. Instead, she looked at Fengjiu and silently asked for her opinion. Fengjiu smiled and took out a zither score from his sleeve. "Play according to this. Don't use spiritual energy." "Yes." Qin Axan took the zither score with both hands and opened it. She couldn't help but be startled. She glanced at Fengjiu and sat cross-legged not far away. She took out her zither, placed it on her knees, and gently plucked the strings. She seemed to be testing the music. The sound of the zither came out intermittently. After a while, the sounds of the zither connected. A beautiful song poured out as her slender and white jade-like fingers gently plucked the strings. Her fingers danced on the zither strings. Her finger technique was skillful and beautiful. The sound of the zither was pleasant and moving. Coupled with her outstanding appearance, the disciples of the immortal sect couldn't help but stare. Only the cold man stared at Fengjiu from time to time, as if he was still guessing her identity. Chapter 3057. Fengjiu, who was resting with her eyes closed, was awakened by the shaking. She opened her eyes and stood up. Using her divine sense, she saw a few dozen men in black standing on a flying ship. They were using the ship to ram into their ship, causing the ship to shake violently. Wang Yanshi-san stuck his head out to take a look. He immediately widened his eyes and turned to look at Fengjiu. "Are they here for you again? Tell me, how many people have you offended? How many enemies have you made?" Fengjiu glanced at him and said, "I've just arrived here. How could I have made enemies? Even if there were, they were here for you." Hearing this, Wang Yanshi-san smiled embarrassedly. He knew that she was referring to the time when they were surrounded. It was true that they were here for him, but it was hard to say now. "If we keep ramming like this, the ship won't be able to take it," the man surnamed Qin said. He looked at Fengjiu and said, "Senior, why don't we stop the ship? Can you fight?" Fengjiu glanced at him. "Have you recovered from your injuries?" Hearing this, they couldn't help but pause. Their injuries had not fully recovered. If they were to fight, they could only use 70% of their strength at most. "There's a defensive barrier on the ship. Stay here," Fengjiu said. Then, she and Wang Yanshi-san looked at each other blindly. The two of them then exited the ship and headed outside. Seeing the two of them come out, the men in black standing on the ship instantly flew out on their swords. The sharp swords in their hands were suffused with bloodthirsty killing intent as they attacked them. The first attack was a killing move, and most of them were aimed at Wang Yanshi-san. Seeing this, Wang Yanshi-san's expression changed. He cursed loudly, "Which bastard wants me dead this time?" He actually hired assassins from the Desperation Tower to ambush me. "I told you they were here for you." Feng Zhou smiled. She wasn't surprised at all. She hadn't made any enemies here. At most, she had killed a manager in the beauty pavilion, but it was only a manager. The people in the beauty pavilion wouldn't provoke her, who had 3 powerful divine beasts, just for a manager. In the past 2 days, those disciples of the immortal sect had been resting in the inn and had not offended anyone. Qin Axayan had no powerful enemies in the city, so naturally, they came for Wang Yanshi-san. "Take his head and report back." The leader of the black-clothed men shouted in a deep voice, the long sword in his hand pointed directly at Wang Yanshi-san's head. Wang Yanshi-san instinctively touched his neck and looked angry. "Fuck you. Don't you know who I am? How dare you attack me? See if I don't destroy you all." He snorted angrily and waved the flag in his hand. Countless spirits flew out and entangled the black-clothed men. He also held a sword in one hand and flew forward to slash down fiercely. Feng Zhou, who was about to attack, was stunned for a moment. She looked at him and then smiled. She took a deep breath and rushed forward, breaking the defensive shield of the enemy's ship and directly killing her way into the ship. In an instant, an overwhelming killing intent spread through the air. A strong and fierce bloodthirsty aura wafted in the air along with the smell of blood. As blood splattered and bodies fell, the scene seemed to be faintly out of control. When the black-clothed men saw that the enemy had defeated them with just 2 people, they became anxious. They stared at the enemy's ship and immediately urged their ship to crash into the enemy's ship. Chapter 3058. Ah! Several people in the airship cried out in alarm. Their entire bodies fell to the side because the airship flipped over. The 2 women from the immortal sect didn't react in time and hit their heads on a corner of the ship, causing blood to seep out. "Hold on to the ship." Qin Axayan shouted and had the 2 women hold on to the ship. Seeing the men jump out of the airship with swords, she also held on to the ship to prevent her body from being thrown out. The cries of alarm from the airship made Feng Zhou frown. She shot the silver needle in her hand towards the black-clothed men. At the same time, her figure flashed, instantly arriving at the side of the airship and stabilizing the ship that was about to flip over. As soon as the immortal sect disciples came out, they were surrounded and attacked by several black-clothed men. Their strength wasn't weak, but their internal injuries hadn't healed. After fighting for a while, their speed gradually slowed down. Seeing a black-clothed man's sword about to stab one of the immortal sect disciples, the man surnamed Qin immediately rushed forward to pull him away. However, he was caught off guard and was slashed. He let out a muffled groan and felt fresh blood gushing out, quickly drenching his robes. He struggled to resist, but his fighting strength grew weaker and weaker with each injury. Seeing the 2 sharp swords about to pierce his heart, he couldn't help but smile bitterly as he couldn't dodge. If he died here, it would really be. Suddenly, his waist was grabbed by someone and he spun around to avoid the fatal attack of the 2 sharp swords. He was startled and turned his head slightly to see a man in green, no, a woman dressed as a man, holding his waist with one hand and bringing him away from danger. While she spun around to avoid danger, she raised her hand and attacked the 2 black-clothed men with a gust of wind. Smelling the woman's fragrance, he inexplicably felt his ears heat up. He said awkwardly, "Let go of me." Feng Zhou spun around with him and a gust of wind rushed out in a circle. The black-clothed men who surrounded them all fell outside. She took a breath and directly sent the male disciple into the airship. Qin Axayan, help him treat his wounds. Feng Zhou didn't even look at him as he ordered Qin Axayan, who who was stopping the bleeding of the two women in the spaceship. Yes. Qin Axian responded and caught the man brought in by her master. She saw that the man's face was pale, his robe was torn, and the wound was so deep that the bone could be seen. The blood had soaked most of his robe. She immediately helped him lie down on the deck of the boat and pressed the acupoints around his shoulder to take out medicine to stop the bleeding. On the other side, Feng Zhou and Wan Yanshi-san were working together, and the enemy's numbers were decreasing one by one. Seeing that the situation was not in their favor, the black-clothed man who had been seriously injured by Feng Zhou glared fiercely at Feng Zhou and made a gesture to retreat. Retreat! The remaining 7 or 8 men in black quickly returned to the spaceship and prepared to escape. However, Feng Zhou sneered. You want to leave? It's too late. How could she let the people who had tried to kill her leave alive? Her figure flashed and a green light flashed. At the same time, the Qin Feng sword appeared and killed several black-clothed men who were trying to escape. The remaining leader of the black-clothed men saw this and immediately took out a teleportation scroll to escape. However, before the scroll could be opened, the sharp sword energy was already in front of him. Xiao. Chapter 30:59. The male disciples who had been injured by the sword and were leaning against the flying ship to catch their breath were terrified by this scene. It was too fast. Her sword was too fast. Her sword was so fast that it was impossible for anyone to dodge it. It was so fast that she had killed someone in one blow. Her opponent did not bleed on the spot but only bled after a few breaths had passed. This person was not lenient when she killed someone. Her technique was more like that of an assassin. After Feng Zhou had killed the man, she slapped her head as if she had remembered something. She looked at Wan Yanshi-san with some annoyance. I forgot to leave you alive. They had all been killed. She did not even know who had sent them. If she had known, she would have left one alive. Hee, it's all right, it's all right. As long as he's all right, that's all that matters. Wan Yanshi-san smiled sheepishly as he spoke. He did not dare to blame this little girl for not leaving him alive. The people who had been sent today were all first-class assassins. If he had been alone, even if he had not died, he would have lost a layer of skin. However, he did not know who had wanted to kill him. In order to kill him, they had spent so much money and had even asked the Desperation Tower for help. Master, his wounds are too deep. They've injured his main artery and he can't stop the bleeding. Qin Axian's voice rang out at this moment, carrying a trace of anxiety. Hearing this, Feng Zhou quickly returned to the flying ship. She saw a large patch of blood on the ground and the man with the surname Qin was unconscious. His face was as pale as a sheet and his breathing was very weak. He's actually injured so badly. She was slightly surprised. She did not expect him to be so severely injured. She quickly stepped forward and took out a pill and stuffed it into his mouth. She then used a silver needle to seal the main artery on his shoulder. The others gathered around worriedly. When they saw the deep wound, they could not help but gasp. However, they saw that the blood had stopped flowing out of the wound not long after. Help him bandage his wounds. Use this medicine. Feng Zhou handed the medicine to Qin Axian. She then looked at the others. Treat your wounds. As she spoke, she let the flying ship slowly descend. She planned to rest for a while and deal with the corpses at the same time. You keep an eye on them. I'll deal with the corpses and valuables. Wan Yanshi-san said, letting her stay on the ship to look after the disciples. Feng Zhou nodded slightly and stayed on the flying ship to keep an eye on the surroundings. She saw that the other injuries were relatively light, and only the male disciple surnamed Qin's injuries were a little more serious. She said, you too, carry him inside. Senior brother Qin should be fine, right? He's so heavily injured. He won't die, right? A woman's eyes were red as she asked worriedly. I'll have to lie down for a few days. As for dying, I won't die. Fengjiu said and gestured to the two disciples who were only slightly injured to carry the injured into the cabin of the spaceship to rest. Just stay on the ship. Don't run around. Fengjiu instructed and followed behind the two disciples. When they entered the cabin, she asked the two disciples to leave first. She closed the door of the cabin and then untied the bandage to treat the wound on his shoulder. The main artery was cut, and the blood gushed out uncontrollably. The wound was so deep that it would take at least 1 or 2 months for him to recover. Moreover, if he lost too much blood, the wound would worsen. Therefore, it was best to treat him to ease the wound and shorten the recovery time. Chapter 30-60. Seeing the figure inside, he smiled and walked up to knock on the door. Come in. Hearing the sound from inside the room, he pushed the door open and walked in. His gaze swept over the people inside, finally landing on Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's. What a coincidence. I didn't expect to meet you here. He walked up with a smile and looked at Fengjiu, saying, to be able to see you here, you should have obtained the 1,000-year black spiritual tendons, right? Seeing that it was him, Fengjiu raised his brows, saying, it is quite a coincidence. Young Master Tan is also here to eat. I had an appointment with a few friends here. Just now, when the waiter closed the door, I caught a glimpse of Miss Feng here, so I wanted to come in to say hello and ask for a cup of wine. As he spoke with a smile, his gaze moved away from Fengjiu and landed on Xianyuanmo's, nodding slightly. Xianyuanmo's gaze swept over him, then moved away. He fetched a wine cup and poured wine, saying, please. Fengjiu had mentioned to him before that the news of the 1,000-year black spiritual tendons had come from this person. As a man himself, he understood the look in this man's eyes when he looked at Fengjiu. But, so what? His woman was so outstanding, it was normal for a man to be pleased with her and admire her. Seeing Xianyuanmo's actions, Tan Haotian's gaze moved slightly. He smiled and raised his wine cup, indicating to the two of them, saying, you too, this Tan salutes you. Fengjiu and Xianyuanmo's raised their wine cups, slightly indicating, then down the wine. After drinking a cup, Tan Haotian put down the wine cup, saying with a smile, this Tan won't disturb you too. Goodbye. As he spoke, he walked out in a carefree manner. The door closed again. Xianyuanmo's withdrew his gaze and picked up his chopsticks to pick up some food for her, saying, try it. As he spoke, he picked up some other food and placed it in her bowl. You also eat. Fengjiu said with a smile, also picking up some food for her. The two of them ate, chatted, and looked at the night scenery. On the other side, Leng Hua and the others also raised their wine cups and drank. However, after the meal, Qin Axayan sat to the side and took out her zither to liven up the atmosphere. The melodious sound of the zither came from her fingers, echoing in the restaurant. Even the people on the street downstairs could hear the sound of the zither. However, they could only hear the sound, but didn't know where the sound came from, and couldn't see who was playing the zither. As the night deepened, they paid the bill and prepared to leave. At this time, there were no more people on the street. However, as they sat in the spirit deer carriage and slowly headed back to the residence, Fengjiu, who lifted the curtain to get some fresh air, saw a few black figures, seemingly carrying something, moving in the night. She raised her eyebrows, glanced in that direction, and said, Ing-yi, follow them and take a look. Yes. Ing-yi, who was in the dark, responded. In a flash, he moved and silently followed behind those people. Xianyuanmo's, who was sitting in the spirit beast carriage, heard her order to Ing-yi and said, it's late at night. Why don't I accompany you for a walk? It was fine to go back directly after eating. Since she was interested in those people, he might as well accompany her to take a look. Chapter 3061. When she came out of the cabin, Wanyan-shur-san had already returned. He placed the treasures and the spaceship in front of Fengzhou. It's all here. You can keep it. Fengzhou didn't refuse and directly put away those things. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said to Qin Axayan, "Come here. Master. These magic tools are for you to protect yourself. Also, keep these. In addition, keep these bottles of medicine, just in case." She took out some things and explained to her how to use them. Finally, she handed her a pendant-shaped chain. This is a spatial magic tool. Wear it around your neck. Looking at those things, Qin Axayan's heart moved slightly. She looked at Fengzhou, took the things, and softly thanked him. "Thank you, Master." Several immortal sect disciples saw that she gave all those things to the woman and couldn't help but feel a little envious. They didn't know anything else, but they could see that her medicine seemed to be very powerful. It was more powerful than the life-saving pills they had collected. "Let's rest here today. I'll go around to see if there are any wild animals and bring back some food," Wanyan-shur-san said as he got off the spaceship and went into the forest. "Follow him," Fengzhou said to the two tiger beast men who were lying on the side and curled up into a small ball. As soon as he finished speaking, the two tiger beast men jumped up and followed Wanyan-shur-san and left. With the help of the two tiger beast men, Wanyan-shur-san picked up some branches and let the two tiger beast men catch the wild animals. Not long after, he came back with a pile of branches and lit a fire not far from the spaceship. "Fengzhou, I picked up some branches. You can roast the wild animals. I found a stream not far ahead. The water is very clear. I'm going to take a bath and change my clothes. You can deal with these first. If there aren't enough branches, call me." He called for Fengzhou to come down. "Got it. Go." Fengzhou responded and walked towards the fire. On the spaceship, the immortal sect disciples couldn't help but be stunned after hearing Wanyan-shur-san's words. "Fengzhou. So, this green-clothed senior was the master of Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Axian. Was she the person that the disciple was talking about?" Thinking of this, they couldn't help but feel nervous. The master of Venerable CK and Venerable Mu Axian. She was also an alchemist master. No wonder her medicine was so good. So this was it. Qin saw the slight change in their expressions, especially the woman beside her. She asked, "Miss Mu, are you not feeling well? Why are you sweating?" No, I'm not feeling unwell. I'm just. She was just frightened. This green-robed senior was actually the master of her Mu clan's ancestor? She had been with her ancestor's master all this time. Thinking of this, she wiped the sweat from her forehead and suddenly felt a lot of pressure. The people on the spaceship looked at each other, then walked down to the fire and asked, "Senior, let's help too. Is there anything we can do? Do you need help?" Fengzhou glanced at them. "Yes." The few of them quickly nodded their heads. Hearing this, Fengzhou thought for a moment. Seeing the two tiger beast men dragging the wild animals back, he smiled and said, "Then help me clean up the wild animals." "Okay." They quickly rolled up their sleeves and got ready to work. Chapter 3062. Qin Axayan was stunned by Fengzhou's words. Although she found it strange, she still nodded. She walked to the side and sat down to practice with her zither. These disciples were all core disciples of the immortal sect and were born in aristocratic families. But here, in front of Fengzhou, they didn't dare to put on airs and could only do what they were supposed to do. Fengjiu was in charge of roasting the meat while the others helped. After a while, the aroma of the meat wafted through the air, making the disciples swallow their saliva. I smelled the aroma from a long distance away. Wanyan Shirsan laughed and walked over. I caught a few fish downstream and cleaned them. Come, let's roast them together. Put the fish on the branch. Fengjiu handed him the branch. He added wine and spices to the roasted meat and cut a piece to taste it. Then he said to them, "It's ready to eat. Cut it yourself." As he spoke, he called Qin Axan over to eat. As soon as she finished speaking, the disciples immediately began to eat. They also roasted the meat themselves outside, but it didn't taste as good as hers. The tiredness of the day and the thrill of being ambushed were all relieved at this moment. After eating, Fengjiu returned to the spaceship and sat cross-legged to cultivate. The disciples outside the spaceship sat around the fire and chatted with Wanyan Shirsan. Senior Wanyan, so she is the master of Venerable CK and Venerable Muaxian. Wanyan Shirsan glanced at them. You just found out. We only found out when you called out her name. If you didn't say it, who would believe that she was a woman? Moreover, she is the master of two masters at the peak of the divine realm. As they talked, Qin Axian was stunned when she heard this. She looked at Wanyan Shirsan and asked hesitantly, "Master is a woman?" She had always thought that the master was a man. She is a woman. Wanyan Shirsan took a bite of the meat and said to her, "She is also a very beautiful woman." Qin Axian was stunned for a moment and then nodded. It turned out to be a woman. Although he did not show it on his face, there was still a trace of disappointment in his heart. She thought that her master was a man, and she had always thought of her master as a man. She didn't expect her master to be a woman. For a woman, it was natural for her to have some thoughts about a man who had saved her and treated her differently. Although she didn't dare to have any thoughts about her master, but in her heart, that elegant young master in green had long been reflected in her heart. Wanyan Shirsan looked at her in a daze, and couldn't help laughing. You secretly like her in your heart. Are you surprised to learn that she's a woman? No, Qin Axian said hurriedly. Heh, you're just giving yourself away. He glanced at her and said, "But it's normal. Your master is like a butterfly, attracting bees and butterflies everywhere. It's understandable that you secretly like her." There are people coming to visit every day. Look, there's even a line outside the door. We can't chase them away even if we want to. Meija followed beside her and said, Du Fan and the others came back after completing their mission yesterday. They knew that Miss wasn't here, so they stayed in the mansion. Seeing the two of them walking inside, Wanyan Shirsan could not help but feel surprised. Fengjiu was one thing, but who was this bald old man guarding the door? How come he could not see through his strength? Ruoda's mansion did not have many guards, and they came in through the back door without making any noise. How did this old man know that someone came in through the back door? Not simple, not simple. Chapter 3064. Fengjiu smiled and nodded. I just arrived. Call the people in the mansion to the main hall. Yes, he answered. When he turned around, his eyes seemed to inadvertently sweep past Yen Shirsan and Qin Axian. This man is also very good-looking and has an extraordinary temperament. People who don't know him would definitely think that he's the son of an aristocratic family. I didn't expect him to be your subordinate. Wanyan Shirsan clicked his tongue as he stared at Lang Hua's departing figure. Fengjiu smiled and walked inside. The people under me are all good-looking. When they go out, they are all young masters of aristocratic families. This is not strange. They went to the front hall. Fengzhou sat on the main seat, Wang Yanshi-san sat on the lower left, and Qin Xan stood beside Fengzhou. After serving the tea, the servant respectfully retreated. Not long after, Ling Shuang carried the child into the hall. "Master." She bowed and called out. Then, she looked at the person sitting in the main seat. At the same time, her eyes fell on Qin Xan and sized her up. "Ya." Little Hao saw Fengzhou waving his hands excitedly. Even though her face was still disguised, that familiar aura still made him want to lean forward. Fengzhou put down the teacup in his hand and stood up. He walked forward with a smile on his face. "Little Hao, did you miss your mother?" As he spoke, he reached out and hugged him. "Nyang nyang, nyang 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 nyang," that the little fellow imitated her voice and called out. He didn't know how to call out Nyang Qin, so he could only vaguely call out Nyang Nyang Fengzhou. He looked at her with sparkling eyes and saliva dripped from the corner of his mouth as he moved closer to Fengzhou's face. Even if it was a muffled voice, Fengzhou's eyes lit up when he heard it. "My son can say, Mom, now." How obedient. She cupped his chubby little face and kissed it. Wang Yanshi-san and Qin were stunned as they looked at her with a joyful expression. "Fine." Along the way, they saw Fengzhou. Sometimes she was cold, sometimes she was evil, and sometimes she was casual and lazy. However, she always had a noble aura, the aura of an expert, and an aura that made people not dare to be too presumptuous in front of her. However, when they arrived at the residence, they saw that she was smiling like a flower. She was very relaxed, which was quite different from when she was outside. Moreover, what surprised them the most was that she already had a child of this age. "Your son." Wang Yanshi-san was stunned. He pointed at the child she was playing with and asked. "Yes. My son, Xianyuan Hao." She grabbed the child's hand and waved at Wang Yanshi-san. Wang Yanshi-san stared at her from head to toe. His expression was strange and certain. "He's not your biological child." Hearing this, Fengzhou smiled slightly. "Hao was adopted by me. Except for the fact that he didn't come from my stomach, everything else is the same. I treat him as my own. Come, let me hug him." He rubbed his hands and reached for the child. "Look at this chubby boy, his facial features are exquisite and outstanding. When he grows up, he will definitely be a handsome man who will charm thousands of girls." Hearing this, Fengzhou laughed and said proudly, "Of course, can my son be bad?" Aw. When the little fellow saw Wang Yanshi-san reaching out to hug him, he waved his hand away in disgust and hid in Fengzhou's arms. His other hand was still tightly grasping Fengzhou's clothes. Chapter 3065. Master. Master, you're back. Master. One by one, they came in from outside and called out excitedly while sizing up the other two people in the hall. "Introduce yourselves." Fengzhou didn't help them introduce themselves. Instead, he was playing with the child while looking at them calmly. Introduce themselves. Everyone was stunned for a moment. Then, Ling Hua smiled gently and introduced himself. "I'm Ling Hua, the housekeeper of the mansion. I'm Du Fan, good at formations. I'm Fan Lin, an alchemist and a doctor." That they introduced themselves one by one and introduced themselves. When they were done, they looked at Wang Yanshi-san and Qin Xan. "I'm Qin Xan. Master saved me on the way here. I'm not good at anything, but I'm good at playing the zither," she said softly. Compared to them, she was so ordinary and unremarkable. Moreover, her face was, thinking of this, she couldn't help but lower her eyes. "I'm Wang Yanshi-san, the 13th uncle of your master's sworn sister. You can call me Wang Yan." He paused, touched his chin and thought for a while. Then, he smiled and said, "Call me 13th Master." 13th Master. When everyone heard that he was the 13th uncle of their master's sworn sister, they naturally didn't dare to neglect him. Moreover, he was brought back to the mansion by their master, so he must have some status. Enchanting, since you're here, just treat this place as your home. You'll slowly get used to it. I'll take you to choose a courtyard later. Lang Hua said gently. Okay, thank you. Enchanting nodded slightly and smiled. Lang Hua, I'll leave them to you. I'll go back to the courtyard first. Come find me later. Fengzhou stood up with the child in his arms and said to Lang Hua. Yes, master. Don't worry. Lang Hua replied. All right, I'll take this opportunity to visit your residence. Wanyan Shirsan said excitedly. Then, as if he had thought of something, he said, Wait, where's your man? Why don't I see him? It was no wonder that he felt like something was missing for most of the day. After thinking for a while, he remembered that the male master of the manor hadn't appeared. If the child's name was Xianyuan Hao, then her husband's surname was Xianyuan. Why didn't I see anyone? She wondered what kind of man could tame a woman like Fengzhou. He's in seclusion and hasn't come out yet. Fengzhou said with a smile, if you have the chance in the future, come visit us more often. You will naturally have the chance to meet him. That's for sure. Not knowing that your home is here is one thing. Now that I know, I'll definitely drop by often in the future. He grinned. Just thinking about it made him happy. Fengzhou asked Ling Shuang to follow him and carried the child back to the courtyard. Lang Hua took Wanyan Shirsan and Enchanting to look around the manor. He also asked someone to tell the kitchen to prepare food. After returning to the courtyard, Fengzhou asked someone to prepare warm water for a bath. She took the child into the bath with her. The two of them played in the tub for a while before getting up. She handed the child to Ling Shuang. After a while, she came out of her room. She changed into a red dress and restored her appearance. She was in such high spirits that people couldn't take their eyes off her. Ma, nyang nyang. The little fellow happily walked towards Fengzhou with his short legs. However, his legs were trembling. After taking 2 steps, he lost his balance and fell forward. Chapter 3066. He. The child's innocent laughter echoed in the courtyard, making those who heard it smile uncontrollably. Fengzhou played with Hao for a while, then carried him to Ling Shuang. Master. Lang Hua's voice came from outside the courtyard. Fengzhou looked over and saw him walk in. She smiled and lay down on the soft couch at the side, asking, What's the matter with those people outside the residence? Why did they come to our residence to ask for medicine? The news that Master is a venerated pill master has spread, so those people came here to ask for medicine. I told them to leave several times, but they didn't listen. Lang Hua was also quite helpless about this matter. The news must have come from the immortal sect. Well, since it spread, then let's use it to do something. She lay on the soft couch and looked at the sky with narrowed eyes. Hearing this, Lang Hua asked, Master plans to do this as a business. Fengzhou's lips curved, that's right, I probably won't be going out for a while. Since that's the case, then I'll just treat it as a practice. She paused, then instructed, Go and record their requests and give them to me. Yes. He responded. Seeing that she had nothing else to say, he left. Ling Shuang, what do you think of Enchanting? Fengzhou looked at Ling Shuang and asked with a smile. Master's taste must be good. She had always believed in her master, unconditionally. Whether it was the things her master did or the people she brought back, there must be a reason behind it. Don't just stand there, sit. Seeing that she was still standing, Fengjiu motioned for her to sit. Seeing this, Ling Shuang walked to the table and sat down, holding little Hao, who was gradually dozing off in his arms. Her zither skills are quite good, I'm preparing to. She chatted with Ling Shuang in the courtyard, telling him her plans. Although there were many people by her side, she trusted them. Ling Shuang and Ling Hua, this pair of brother and sister, were different in her heart. No matter how many people appeared by her side, they could not replace the two of them in her heart. They also seemed to know that they would only secretly pay attention to the people she took in, observing their words and actions, because they were worried that those people would hurt her. However, even if they were worried, they trusted her taste because they had never made a mistake. That night, the people of the Feng residence sat around the table filled with food and wine. They ate, drank, and chatted, especially Wan Yanshi-san, who was like a curious child, asking strange questions from time to time. Fengjiu, why is this residence? Why is it not the Xianyuan manor? Fengjiu, why did Xianyuan go into seclusion so easily? How can he calm down and go into seclusion? Fengjiu, is his strength stronger than yours? How did you two meet? Was he the one who chased you first? Or did you fall in love with him first? He must be a handsome man, right? Otherwise, you definitely wouldn't like him. Ha ha ha, does he have many suitors around him? Don't you need to help him get rid of them? The lively night ended with Wan Yanshi-san's curious gossip. As the night deepened, everyone returned to their own courtyards to rest. When Feng Nine returned to her room, slightly drunk, she sensed the presence of another person as soon as she entered the room. Chapter 3067. Xianyuan Mose flipped through the book in his hand. His deep gaze carried a trace of doting as he looked at her. His deep voice was very seductive in the night. If you didn't come out of seclusion, then who is the person warming your bed right now? I just came back today. I asked Lang Hua and the others, but they said you still haven't come out of seclusion. She walked forward with a smile, took off her coat and boots, and directly threw herself on top of him. You reek of alcohol. Xianyuan Mo said, but still closed the book in his hand and put it aside. He reached out and hugged her waist. I only drank a little wine. It's not as bad as the smell of alcohol. She smiled and her eyes narrowed. Her head arched in his embrace, and she found a comfortable position. Just like that, she laid on top of him with the quilt between them. She leaned on his chest. Since you came out of seclusion, why didn't you come out to meet everyone? It's too troublesome. Xianyuan Mo said. In his opinion, people who had nothing to do with her were all troublesome. I brought back a man and a woman. The man is my sister's 13th uncle. He's called Wan Yanshi-san. The woman is called Qin Axin. I saved her. She rubbed against his chest like a kitten and said, I went out this time and brought back 2 little things for you. Look. She flicked her sleeves and 2 tiger beasts came out of the space. They obediently squatted in front of the bed and looked at the 2 people lying on the bed together. Even the 2 beasts felt a little shy when they saw them. Master, your position is wrong. It should be the man on top and the woman below, not the woman on top and the man below. The male tiger kindly reminded. Fengjiu heard this and several black lines appeared on his forehead. However, Xianyuan Mose heard this and smiled. He glanced at the tiger beasts and said, we like this position. Fengjiu felt embarrassed when he heard this. Was it really okay to talk about this in front of 2 tiger beasts? She coughed softly and said to Xianyuan Mose, these 2 tiger beasts have reached the level of mythological beasts. I remembered that you said last time that it would be best to get 2 mighty beasts to guard the door, so when I saw these 2 tiger beasts, I felt that they were quite suitable and brought them back. Not bad. Xianyuan Mose nodded and glanced at the two tiger beasts who were looking at them. What are you still squatting here for? Go stand guard outside the manor's gate. From today onwards, you will be responsible for guarding the Feng Manor's gate. As soon as these words were spoken, the two tiger beasts clearly felt a pressure so strong that it made them tremble, pressing down on them. They didn't dare to say another word as they responded and left the room, heading towards the door. Ajou, I missed you. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he leaned over and kissed her moist lips. Feng Jiu was lying on top of him. Hearing this, she began to laugh. Reaching out, she wrapped her arms around his neck and passionately responded to his kiss. Only when she was out of breath did Xianyuan Mose let go of her. Taking a deep breath, he slowly suppressed the flames that had surged through his body. Just as he was about to speak, Feng Jiu suddenly jumped up from his body. Your veins have been damaged. Feng Jiu's expression changed slightly. Her hand was already on his pulse. Just now, she had faintly sensed that the aura in his body was a bit different. However, she never thought that it would be his veins that had been damaged. Seeing her nervous appearance, Xianyuan Mose chuckled and comforted her. Don't worry. I was just about to talk to you about this. Chapter 3068. There was an accident when I was cultivating. He said simply, not wanting her to worry too much. It's just that my meridians are damaged. My strength has dropped to 50% because of the damage to my meridians. Other than that, there's no big problem. That's not a big problem. She glared at him and said worriedly, when an enlightened master is injured, it can't be treated by ordinary pills. Moreover, the damage to your meridians is not a small problem. Also, your strength has dropped to 50% because of the damage to your meridians. This is very dangerous for you, do you know that? As she spoke, she patted her face, dispelling the last trace of drunkenness. Then, she sat beside him and said, you must have eaten the pill, but you can't see the effect. How about this? I'll try to repair it for you first. If it doesn't work, I'll think of something else. With the green lotus life force in your body. Xianyuan Mose's expression turned serious. He said in a low voice, you've used too much life force. It's also taxing on you. Moreover, your body. It's fine. Don't talk. Sit properly. She gestured for him to sit cross-legged with his back facing her. Audiobook. As soon as he spoke, he saw that she had already used her hands to apply spiritual qi to his back. Seeing this, he sighed softly and focused his mind to feel the life force. A green qi gradually spread out from Feng Jiu's palms. That qi passed through his body and into Xianyuan Mose's body, repairing his damaged meridians bit by bit. Using life force to repair wounds and internal injuries had a very high chance of recovery. However, for an enlightened master, what kind of effect would it have? The higher one's strength, the more resilient their meridians would be. It would be even harder to repair them. However, right now, she could only use all her strength to help him repair it. Because if his meridians were damaged for a long time, even if they could be repaired in the future, they would not be able to reach their initial peak. The life force of the green lotus flowed through his body, making him feel relaxed all over. He could feel the powerful aura of the spiritual energy. However, as the life force of the green lotus flowed through his body, he could feel that her aura was gradually becoming unstable. Ah, Joe, that's enough. He said, trying to stop her. Don't talk. As Feng Jiu spoke, the sweat on his forehead slid down his cheeks. His hands were pressed tightly against Chu Li's back, continuously transferring the life force of the green lotus to him. Xianyuan Mose wanted to push her away, but he was afraid that he would hurt her. He was afraid that she would not be able to bear it, so he said, Ajou, I'm much better now. That's enough. You can stop now. Fingzhou did not pay any attention to him. Instead, he concentrated on transferring the life force of the green lotus until his body could no longer take it. Only then did his hands loosen, and he collapsed onto the bed in exhaustion. In that instant, Xianyuanmo's turned around and caught her, allowing her to lean into his embrace. Looking at her pale complexion and the sweat on her forehead, he couldn't help but gently caress her face with heartache. "Ajo, why must you do this? How can your body withstand transferring so much life force to me? How do you feel? How much of your strength have you recovered?" Fingzhou asked in a weak voice. His entire body was limp, and he couldn't even lift his hand. "All right, you don't have to worry. Tell me the truth, I have to know." Fengzhou looked at him and said. Seeing this, Xianyuanmo sighed softly. 70%. Chapter 3069. Don't think too much. Let's sleep. He hugged her as they fell onto the big bed and hugged her. Because she had used up too much spiritual power and the life force of the green lotus, she was very tired. Smelling the familiar scent and hugging the person who made her feel at ease, she fell into a deep sleep. The next afternoon when Leng Hua came over and saw that his master was still asleep, he couldn't help but feel strange. Usually, his master would be awake at this time. Why wasn't there any movement today? He was a little worried and was about to knock on the door. However, at this time, he saw the door open. The Yama Lord, who was supposed to be in seclusion, walked out. Yama Lord. Leng Hua was slightly surprised. Wasn't the Yama Lord supposed to be in seclusion? Why do you need something from her? Xianyuanmo asked, walking to the courtyard and sitting down. Hui Lang appeared out of nowhere and placed a cup of tea on the table. Then, he stood quietly to the side. Leng Hua glanced at Hui Lang, then respectfully said to Xianyuanmo, "Master asked me to record the requests of the people outside the residence yesterday. I thought that Master should be awake by now, so I brought the records over for Master to take a look." When the people outside the residence heard the news, they were all very happy. Even though they knew that not everyone's request would be satisfied, they still had a trace of anticipation. "Let me see it," Xianyuanmo said. "Yes," Leng Hua replied, then took out a book and handed it over with both hands. Xianyuanmo took the book and placed it on the table. He first picked up his tea and took a sip, then flipped open the book to look at it. Some of the requests were for medicinal pills, some were for good medicine, and some were for treating illnesses. What's more, they were the ones who provided the medicine, and they would be paid afterwards. After flipping through the recorded requests, he estimated that these things shouldn't be too difficult for Fingzhou. Then, he said, "You can leave. I'll bring it to her when she wakes up." "Yes." Leng Hua responded. He bowed and left. It was rare for Hui Lang to be quiet. He stood aside without saying anything. Xianyuanmo didn't say anything either. As time passed, Fingzhou lazily came out of the room when the sun was setting. "Awake? Come and eat something." Xianyuanmo chuckled as he looked at the Fingzhou walking out. At this moment, the table was already filled with cooked porridge and stir-fried side dishes. It was simple and light. "Why are you up so early? Why don't you rest for a while?" Fengzhou walked over and sat down at the table. "I can't sleep," he said as he scooped a bowl of porridge for her. "How do you feel today? Give me your hand, and I'll check your pulse again." Fengzhou said, letting him take her hand out to check her pulse. "Much better. You don't have to worry." He curled his lips into a smile. He didn't give her his hand, but stuffed the spoon into her hand. "Hurry up and eat. We'll talk after you finish eating. Otherwise, the porridge and side dishes will get cold." Seeing this, Fengjiu glanced at her, then nodded. Let's finish eating first. There was no rush. Moreover, he said last night that he had recovered 70% of his strength. It was a good thing. The two of them were like an old married couple who had been in love for many years. They ate quietly, and the two of them helped each other with food from time to time. At the dining table, there was a kind of warmth and tacit understanding between the two of them. Chapter 30-70. What are you doing here? Hui Lang asked in a low voice. He glanced into the courtyard and saw that his master and the ghost doctor were talking, so he followed Lang Hua to the side. Isn't the Yama Lord in seclusion? Why did he suddenly come out? Lang Hua asked. Logically speaking, the Yama Lord shouldn't have come out during this period of time, but he did. Could it be that he had encountered some problems in his cultivation? Master had an accident when he was cultivating, and his meridians were damaged due to the backlash. He said not to tell anyone. Just keep it to yourself and don't tell anyone else, Hui Lang said in a low voice. Lang Hua was slightly surprised, but he wasn't surprised. Someone who should have been in seclusion had come out. He thought that something must have happened. Sure enough, after asking, he found out that the Yama Lord had an accident when he was cultivating, and his meridians were damaged. If an enlightened master's meridians were damaged, it would be very difficult for them to recover. If it was delayed for too long, he was afraid that I have to stay by master's side for this period of time. Go to the front later and tell Du Fan and the others that I won't be participating in any of the mercenary missions for now. He had to stay by master's side, so he didn't have to worry about anything else for now. Lang Hua nodded. I know, I'll tell them later. As soon as his voice fell, he patted Lang Hua's shoulder and turned to leave. In the courtyard, Fengjiu said to Xianyuan Mose, don't cultivate for now. Relax. I'll research and see if there are any pills that can repair your meridians. What about the 9 transformations golden pill? Xianyuan Mose asked. If it works, can't I just use the 9 transformations golden pill? The 9 transformations golden pill isn't a panacea. Fengjiu shook his head and smiled. It can revive a person who has just died, and it can also heal extremely serious internal injuries. However, when it comes to repairing the meridians of an Empyrean god, it still doesn't have a very obvious effect. After all, even the Green Lotus life force can only help you recover to 70% of your strength. She lightly sighed and said, the best medicine to repair the meridians for a strong person is the 1,000-year black spirit tendons. If you use it to refine a medicinal pill, not only will it allow your damaged meridians to recover, the tenacity of your meridians will also increase by another level. However, the 1,000-year black spirit tendons are very hard to find. I will go to the city's auction house to see if there is any news of the black spirit tendons. I'll go with you, he said. She shook her head. No need, you can stay at home. I'll be right back. Hearing that, Xianyuan Mose didn't say anything more. No one in Square City could hurt her, so he would let her go by herself. Thus, after chatting with him for a while, Fengjiu went outside, while Xianyuan Mose went ahead. A few people came to the mansion. Although he had heard about them from Ying Yi, he hadn't seen them yet, so he decided to go take a look. The purple gold spirit deer carriage was pulled out. Lang Hua drove the spirit deer carriage with Fengjiu outside the mansion. As the door opened, the people waiting outside the mansion gathered one by one. However, before they could get close, the purple gold spirit deer carriage swept past them and disappeared into the distance in the blink of an eye. The purple gold spirit deer carriage. That person came out. I heard that person has the appearance of an immortal, but I haven't seen her yet. That young Master Feng, no, young Miss Feng, no, she should be called Venerable. It is said that she likes red clothes, and her appearance is devastatingly beautiful, unparalleled. I really hope I can ask for medicinal pills from her. I hope she can treat my father's illness. Chapter 3071. Right now, her medicine is being sold outside. There is a market but no price. Otherwise, why would there be so many people waiting here every day? Looking at the entire city, there are not many people who have the face to enter the Feng Manor. The people gathered outside were all discussing this. They were waiting for an opportunity to obtain the medicine. On the other side, the spirit deer carriage stopped in front of the auction house's entrance. Leng Hua got out of the carriage and said, "Master, I will accompany you inside." "That's fine." Feng Zhou nodded and had him hand the carriage over to the auction house's people. The auction house's people recognized them. Upon seeing Feng Zhou, they immediately went to welcome them. "Young Miss Feng has come. Please come in." They then had someone lead the carriage to the side, while someone else quickly went to inform their master. Hearing that Feng Zhou had come, the auction house's owner, Tan Haoyan, walked out from inside and personally welcomed them. Seeing the red-clothed Feng Zhou, he revealed a smile. As the saying goes, one does not visit a temple without a cause. Could it be that you have come for some reason? I want to ask, does your auction house have 1,000-year black spiritual tendons? Oh. Hearing this, Tan Haoyan's eyes slightly flashed, and he looked her over before saying, "Let's go upstairs and talk. Please." Saying this, he gestured for them to enter. Seeing this, Feng Zhou followed him into the building's side room. Once inside, tea and snacks were brought out. Tan Haoyan sat at the table and personally poured tea for Feng Zhou. Glancing at her, he said, "The 1,000-year black spiritual tendons are the main medicine for repairing veins. I see that your complexion is the same as before, and it doesn't seem like your veins have been damaged. Why would you want this medicine?" Feng Zhou picked up the tea and took a sip, calmly saying, "When your auction house's customers buy things, could it be that they ask for their use?" "Haha, of course not. I only asked a few questions because I care about you." He smiled, not caring that Leng Hua, who was behind Feng Zhou, was looking at him. Hearing this, Feng Zhou put down his teacup and picked up a piece of cake to eat. He glanced at him indifferently and said, "I only care if you have the 1,000-year black spirit tendons here." "No." He shook his head and said with a smile, "What kind of precious spirit medicine is the black spirit tendon? How could they be seen so often? Not to mention that I don't have it here, the other cities and towns, and even the 4 great immortal sects don't have it." Hearing this, Feng Zhou's brows furrowed, and his expression froze. She had originally thought that if she couldn't find it here, she would go somewhere else and search for it in the 4 great immortal sects. However, after hearing what he said, it seemed that the 1,000-year-old black spirit tendons were indeed extremely difficult to find. If that was the case, then it would truly be troublesome. "Do you really need this spiritual medicine?" Seeing her expression, he was a little surprised. "If I didn't need it, why would I come here?" Wasn't this a useless question? Tan Haoyan paused, as if he was thinking of something. "Do you know where it can be found?" Feng Zhou saw his expression and asked. He glanced at Feng Zhou and said, "I've heard of it, but I've never seen it. I don't know if it's true or not." Seeing that she kept staring at him, he sighed softly and said, "Inside the spirit void's secret domain, there are spirit medicines everywhere. However, the more precious the spirit medicines are, the stronger the guardian beasts. In addition, the spirit void's secret domain is the cultivation secret domain of the 4 great immortal sects. Unless one is a disciple of the 4 great immortal sects, no one can enter." Chapter 3072. Listening to his words, Feng Zhou couldn't help but ponder. He said that disciples above the peak of the nascent soul realm couldn't enter, but he also said that even if they used some method to enter, their strength would be suppressed. In other words, there was still a way to enter. Thinking of this, she glanced at him and said, "How did you know?" Tan Haotian smiled and said, "A few years ago, someone disguised himself to look for medicine and accidentally found a 1,000-year-old black spirit tendon. However, there were powerful fierce beasts guarding it, so he couldn't get close. Later, when he was drinking and chatting with me, he mentioned it. However, I only heard about it from him. I didn't see it with my own eyes whether it really existed." Hearing this, she stood up and said, "Thank you. Goodbye. You're leaving." Tan Haotian looked at her. Fengjiu paused and looked back at him, saying, "If what you said is true, I will owe you a favor." Tan Haotian's eyes flashed, but he didn't speak. He just quietly watched her leave. A favor from Fengjiu. It seemed pretty good. Leng Hua drove the spirit deer carriage to send Fengjiu away. On the way, he asked, "Master, do you believe what he said? But even if it's true, how do we enter the secret land? Don't go back to the mansion first. Go to the Blue Star Immortal Sect." Fengjiu said and asked him to go in the direction of the Immortal Sect. Since it was related to Xianyuan Mo's, she had to confirm it again. "Yes." Leng Hua responded, turned around, and drove the spirit deer carriage directly into the sky, walking on air. Blue Star Immortal Sect. When they heard that a disciple quickly came to report that Fengjiu had arrived outside the Immortal Sect, CK and Mu Axian hurried down. When they arrived outside the sect, they saw the spirit deer carriage parked under a tree. They looked at each other and quickly walked up. "Master!" The two of them called out. They were a little surprised by her sudden arrival, especially Venerable Mu Axian. When he saw the two purple gold spirit deer that he had treasured in the past being used by his master as spirit beasts to pull the carriage, his heart couldn't help but twitch. "Does your immortal sect have a 1,000-year crow spirit tendon?" Fengjiu's voice came from the beast carriage. 1,000-year black spirit tendon. The two of them stared blankly for a moment before replying at the same time, "No, this is a rare elixir used to treat tendons and veins. It's especially rare for a 1,000-year-old elixir." Listening to their conversation, Fengjiu paused for a moment, deep in thought. At this moment, CK thought for a while and said, "Master, I once heard from a disciple of an immortal sect that there is a 1,000-year-old black spirit tendon in the four immortal sects' virtual spirit realm. But I don't know if it's true or not." She had heard about this from Tan Haotian before. Now that she heard it again, her gaze flickered as she asked, "When will the spirit void mystery realm open? I want to go in. Do you have any way to send me in?" When the two of them heard this, they couldn't help but be shocked. "Master, if a cultivator whose strength exceeds the nascent soul realm enters the spirit void mystery realm, his strength will be greatly suppressed. Moreover, it's extremely dangerous inside. It's a place for the disciples of the four immortal sect to gain experience. Why do you want to take this risk?" "I want a 1,000-year-old black spirit tendon, so I have to go in," Fengjiu said lightly. "But master, such a rare and precious elixir must be guarded by a powerful vicious beast. With master's strength, I'm afraid your strength will be suppressed greatly. Moreover, master's contracted beast will not be able to come out because of the restriction. If master goes in, it will be too dangerous." Chapter 3073. Seeing this, the two knew that she must go in. After thinking for a while, they said, "If master wants to go in, we naturally have a way. However, I'm afraid master can't go in with this identity. You have to change your identity. After all, it's the four major immortal sects' secret territory." "Yes, I know." She lifted the curtain and looked at the two people outside. She asked, "When will the spirit void secret territory open?" The two smiled and said, "Master has come at the right time. Recently, the sect has been making arrangements for this. We have also selected disciples to go and gain experience. In a few days, we should depart to meet at the transportation array. If Master has finished arranging things in the mansion, you can come over tomorrow. We will arrange an identity for Master. Okay. Fengjiu responded. After saying a few words to them, she left first. Seeing the purple gold spirit deer beast carriage fly into the sky and disappear into the clouds in a few breaths, CK couldn't help but ponder, why do you think Master is so anxious to find the 1,000-year black spirit tendon? How would I know? I'm just worried that if Master enters the secret territory, her strength will be suppressed and she will be in danger. If anything happens to her, do you think Master Xianyuan will let us go? Mu Axian couldn't help but worry when she thought of this. On one hand, it was because of their alchemy venerable master. As an alchemy venerable, her status was extraordinary. Why did she have to go in to find the black spirit tendon? Why couldn't she let others do it for her? If something happened to her in there, what would they do? Go back and make arrangements. Tell this disciple to protect her when the time comes. As CK spoke, he let out a light sigh. He flicked his sleeves and walked towards the immortal sect with his hands behind his back. When Fengjiu returned to the mansion, the sun had already set. In the mansion, Xianyuan Mose had been waiting for her return. When she returned to the mansion and entered the gate, Wanyan San came up to her and said, Fengjiu, I saw your man. TSK, his aura is quite scary. Hearing this, Fengjiu smiled. You saw it. He just came out of seclusion. He probably won't be in seclusion for a while and will be in the mansion. If you're not in a hurry to go back, you can stay and accompany him. Hearing this, Wanyan San rubbed his chin and stared at her. What you said is a little strange. Stay and keep him company. What about you? What do you want to do? I'm going out for a while. I won't be back for a while. Fengjiu said as he walked inside. I see. Then I'll leave tomorrow as well. I don't want to face your husband. You don't know, your husband is like a jealous jar. He kept staring at me today and asked if I was married. Do you have a woman you like? From the looks of it, he almost told me to keep my distance from you. Puchi. Fengjiu couldn't help but laugh. How could it be that exaggerated? Mose just looks cold, but after interacting with him, you'll know that he's actually a pretty good person. Yes, he's pretty good. Wanyan San agreed. We were waiting for you to come back, so we ate first. However, I saw your husband instruct someone to send food to the courtyard. You should go eat first. We'll talk later. With that, he waved his hand and left. Chapter 3074. I'm back. She said softly and walked over to his side. Xianyuan Mose opened his eyes and reached out to hold her hand. Why were you gone for so long? As he spoke, he reached out to pull her to sit on his lap and hugged her. After I went to the auction house, I went to the immortal sect. She paused and continued, the market doesn't have a 1,000-year-old black spirit tendon, but the spirit void mystery territory has it, so I want to go in. CK and the others have been arranging for their disciples to go to the mystery territory to gain experience. I've already told them to arrange for me to go in. I'll leave tomorrow. You've only been back for 2 days. As Xianyuan Mose spoke, he tightened his arms around her. Ajo, I'll be heartbroken if you're like this. He couldn't bear for her to tire herself out like this. What's more, she had to go on an adventure for him. Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled and turned around to look at him. If I don't repair your tendons and veins, I'll be worried. Don't worry. It's not the first time I've entered the mystery territory, I'll take care of myself. Also, it said that there are many precious elixirs in the spirit void mystery territory. I want to pick some. I should have been the one to do this. Xianyuan Mo sighed softly. You're not familiar with the herbs, you probably won't be able to find them. I don't feel at ease leaving it to others, so it's best for me to do it myself. She chuckled. Don't worry, just wait at home for me to come back. Then you have to be careful, don't be careless and get hurt. He said. I know. She smiled and nodded, changing the topic. I haven't had dinner yet. I'm hungry. Hearing this, Xianyuan Mose called out. Ing Yi, tell the kitchen to send the food over. Yes. There was no figure, only a voice, like a gust of wind, and Ing Yi, who was in the dark, went to the kitchen. After the meal, Fengzhou informed the people in the residence that she was going out. She then chatted with Wan Yanshi-san for a while before returning to the courtyard to pack her things. The next morning, as soon as the sky brightened, she left under Xianyuan Mo's escort. She went to the Immortal Sect alone. In the Immortal Sect, CK and Mu Axian were in the Immortal's cave, talking about the things they had arranged. Mu Axian said, what if Shirzuan can't find the black spirit tendon? Can't find it. CK glanced at him and said, I'd believe it if someone else said that they couldn't find it, but I don't believe it if Master said that she couldn't find it. If they were so simple-minded, how could they have become her disciples? But at this moment, Master should be here as well. Why don't we go out to pick them up? Mu Axian suggested. All right. CK agreed, got up, and walked out with him. As they walked out of the Immortal's cave, they saw a disciple leading a young man in green. When they saw the young man in green, the two of them couldn't help but pay more attention to him. They carefully sized up the young man in green. When they saw the young man's outer robe fluttering in the wind and the feather that was revealed, their eyes lit up. You can leave first. CK said to the disciple leading the way. Yes. The disciple replied, looking at the young man in green with some confusion. Master. Chapter 3075. Yes. Fengzhou responded and looked at the two. Have you arranged everything? Hearing her voice, CK said, Master, don't worry. Everything has been arranged. We have arranged for Master to be Muzhou, a disciple of Mu Xian's family. Because the sect doesn't know about this, so... It's okay. You just need to tell me what to do next. Fengzhou said. No matter what identity she had, it was the same to her as long as she could go in and find the 1,000-year black spiritual tendons. Hearing this, the two were slightly relieved. They were originally worried that Master would be dissatisfied with this identity, but after hearing her words, they were relieved. Then, the two of them looked at each other and smiled. Master will be staying in the sect for the next few days. We also need to bring Master to meet some of our disciples. Master won't be able to live in the Immortal Sect's cave dwelling, so we've arranged a new place for Master. With that, the two took her to a small cave to rest and then went to arrange for the disciples. In the evening, they took her to CK's main peak. The 8 disciples looked at each other in confusion. They all knew each other because they were the 4 most outstanding disciples under CK and Mu Axian. However, they didn't understand why they were called to CK's main peak. What are you doing, Master? I heard that a new disciple has come. Let's get to know him. A new disciple? It said that he's not a new disciple. He's a disciple of the Mu family. He's a disciple of Venerable Mu Axian, but he doesn't usually cultivate in the sect. He just came back this time. The Mu family. Mu Ling, isn't that a member of your family? Do you know him? A man looked at another man and asked. The man called Mu Ling shook his head. The Mu family is huge. How can I know everyone? Master, why did you call that disciple here? The 8 of us were selected to enter the Spirit Void's secret realm. Could it be that the new junior brother is also going to enter the Spirit Void's secret realm? A man in his 20s smiled with anticipation. As soon as he said this, the others fell into deep thought. After thinking about it, it really was possible. If he wasn't going to enter the Spirit Void mystic realm, why would he call them over to get acquainted with him? Moreover, it was likely that this person was rather favored by their masters. Otherwise, why would they, the senior brothers and sisters, have all come here to wait? Mu Ling, you have to take good care of your Mu clan when you enter. A man said with a smile. As soon as his voice fell, he continued, I wonder how strong this junior brother is. The 8 of us have all been carefully selected, and our strengths are also comparable. Could it be that this little junior brother's strength is also comparable to ours? We'll know when Master and the others come. There's no point in talking about it now. Another man said as he looked ahead. Hearing this, the few of them quieted down. That's right, we'll know later. There's no need to discuss it here. Not long after, they saw Venerable CK and Venerable Muaxian walking over with their hands behind their backs. Behind them, there seemed to be a thin and small green figure. Because that person was behind them and was blocked by them, they couldn't see his face clearly. Chapter 3076. Greetings to Master and Venerable C. Quebec. Greetings to Master and Venerable Muaxian. The disciples from both sides cupped their hands and saluted at the same time. Their eyes were discreetly sizing up the figure in green. Looking at the figure, they were a little surprised. This little junior brother looked very thin and weak. They didn't know if he was 15 or 16 years old. With this kind of body and age, how could he enter the Spirit Void mystery realm? What if something were to happen in there? This is Mujo, a disciple I took in outside. I only called him back recently. He will enter the Spirit Void mystery realm with you. As his senior brothers, you have to take care of him. Muaxian said in a low voice, his eyes sweeping over his disciples. Yes, I will follow your orders, Master. I will definitely take care of junior brother, said Reverend Muaxian's disciple. His gaze landed on the young man in green. He looked so small and weak. They really didn't know why Master wanted him to enter such a dangerous place. The same goes for all of you. When you enter, you have to take care of each other. CK looked at his disciples and said. Yes. The other 4 disciples also responded. Mujo, this is my eldest disciple, Mu Ling. He is also a member of my family. This is my second disciple, Qing Junnan. The third disciple, Guiziki, and the fourth disciple, Lin Yusher. Greetings to senior brothers and sisters. Fengzhou stepped forward and cupped his hands in greeting. CK and Muaxian's hearts skipped a beat when they heard her address them as senior brothers and sisters. This was their ancestor. Now, she had to address their disciples as senior brothers and sisters. This was really messed up. Little junior brother. The few of them nodded slightly. Ahem. CK coughed softly and introduced Fengzhou, Mujo, these are my disciples. You don't have to call them senior brothers and sisters. Just call them by their names. CK said, winking at his 4 disciples, introduce yourselves. I am Pei Zixuan. I'm Lin Qingjin, Yusher's brother, the man said with a smile and glanced at his sister. I'm Xiao Kaiji. The last person was a woman. She spoke in a light voice, I'm Gretchen, Mujo, you can just call us by our names. Okay, Fengzhou replied with a smile. Well, you've seen him. Mujo, go back to the cave and cultivate. Mu Axian ordered in a deep voice, indicating that she should leave first. Yes. Feng Jiu smiled. After nodding slightly to everyone, she left first. The few of you, cultivate more in the next few days. Prepare all the things you need to prepare. Also, there is one more thing that I just instructed you to do. Once we are inside, you must protect Mu Jiu well. Mu Axian was still worried and reminded them again. The few of them were slightly surprised, but they didn't show it on their faces. They still acknowledged the order. After the two venerable ones left, the few of them looked at each other. Who do you think this Mu Jiu is? Why does it feel like Master's attitude towards him is different? He's from the Mu clan, Mu Ling said, glancing at them. Since Master has instructed, we'll do as he says. Hearing this, the few of them didn't say anything else. After a while, they returned to their respective cave residences. After returning to the cave residence, Feng Jiu began to develop some medicine to protect himself. If he couldn't use his strength inside, it was better to prepare more medicine. Chapter 3077. Master, we brought some things for you. CK took out a space ring and handed it to her. This ring contains the cultivation technique of the Xiu sect. Master needs to practice this technique in the next 2 days. Only disciples with the cultivation technique of the 4 major immortal sects can enter the Spirit Void Mystery Land. There is also a transmission jade token. If Master encounters any danger, you can crush the jade token to come out. In addition, the space array will open in 3 months. The disciples of the 4 major immortal sects will be sent back to their respective sects based on the aura of the cultivation technique in each disciple's body. Hearing this, Feng Jiu nodded. Yes, I understand. Then we'll go back first. We won't disturb Master. After the two of them handed the items to her, they bowed and left. After they left, Feng Jiu took out the cultivation technique and memorized it. Then she sat down cross-legged and practiced. It only took her 1 night to reach the 7th level of the cultivation technique. In the next few days, she did not go out until Mu Axian sent someone to tell her that she was ready to leave. Only then did she step out of the cave residence. On this day, she and the other 8 disciples took a flying ship to the transmission array with the other disciples of the sect. She estimated that there should be around 100 disciples of the Blue Star Immortal sect. Just as she was thinking, she heard Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan talking. It is said that the 4 major immortal sects will each have 100 people to enter the Mystery Land. There are about 400 people in the 4 major immortal sects. It seems that the Mystery Land will be lively this time. This time, we will be in there for 3 months. We will probably form a team before entering. Should we add a few more people here? Once they entered, they would form a team. If there were too few people in their group, their fighting power would be relatively weak. It would not be beneficial for them. When we get there, we will make arrangements. We must find a few more people. Otherwise, we will have fewer people and weaker fighting power than others. Feng Jiu listened to their conversation and read a book on herbs. She felt that many disciples on the flying ship were sizing her up. She pretended not to notice and continued reading. Senior Brother Mu, is this person also a disciple of your peak? Why haven't I seen him before? A disciple asked, his gaze falling on Feng Jiu. That's right, he's my junior brother. Mu Ling smiled and nodded. Feng Jiu also looked up at that person and smiled, then lowered his head to continue reading. When others didn't say anything, she quietly did her own things. When others asked her, she would respond and exchange a few words with them. Because she didn't talk much and kept reading, those who hadn't interacted with her felt that she was a shy person who wasn't good at talking. Therefore, he did not pay much attention to her. Their master had instructed them not to ask too much about Muzhou. Along the way, the disciples were not very familiar with him, so they did not know what to say to him. They did not speak until the flying ship slowly landed and arrived at the teleportation portal. The disciples from the other sects also arrived one after another. After Fengzhou and the others disembarked from the flying ship, they saw that the surroundings were bustling with noise and excitement. There were not many people gathered around and chatting. He also noticed that the clothes of each sect's disciples were of different colors and were easily distinguishable. Chapter 3078. The 100 sect disciples quickly formed teams. Fengzhou followed beside Mu Ling and the rest. Seeing that they were not in a hurry to form a team, he stood quietly and observed the people around him. Mu Ling, do you have enough people in your team? How about we join in? A man brought a few people over and said to Mu Ling. Mu Ling glanced at the four of them, then looked at Pei Zixuan. What do you think? Sure, with the four of them, it'll be 13 people. That's about right, Pei Zixuan said and nodded. All right then, you guys can form a team with us. Come, let me introduce you to the people in our team. Mu Ling said and introduced the 9 people on his side. After getting to know each other, the few people's gazes landed on Fengzhou and said, "This little junior brother doesn't look very old. He's actually a member of your Mu family." Mu Ling smiled. That's right. Fengzhou also smiled slightly and nodded at them. With the activation of the array and the supremacy's instructions, the surrounding small teams split into a few small teams and went forward. They disappeared from where they were as the array teleported them. When Fengzhou and the rest appeared, they were already in the dense forest. The few small teams that came in with them were also present. Everyone looked at each other and cupped their hands in greeting. Then, they each chose a direction to go in. In here, people from the same sect would support each other. They would only be wary of people from other sections. People from the same sect would not have any designs on them. Let's sit down and talk first. In case we get separated and can't find our team, we have to make a secret signal. Mu Ling said and looked at everyone. There are 13 of us here. Everyone has to have a secret signal. My secret signal is this. He drew a leaf on the ground and looked at the others. If I get lost, I will carve my secret signal on a tree or a rock. Then, it will point in the direction I want to go. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Then I'll draw a lightning bolt. Pei Zixuan said with a smile and drew a lightning bolt on the ground. It's easy to remember. Then I'll draw a circle and add a cross inside. I'll draw a small sword. I'll draw a fruit. Each of them drew what they represented on the ground for everyone to see. In the end, seeing that Muzhou, who hadn't said much, hadn't drawn anything, he asked, Muzhou, what about you? I'll just write 9. Fengzhou said with a smile. He didn't think he would need it. Alright, let's all remember this so that we won't forget. In here, other than the ferocious beasts, we can also harvest some precious spiritual herbs. However, we have to be careful. The more precious the spiritual herbs are, the stronger the guardian beasts will be guarding them. There are 13 people in the team, and we will take turns to be the leader. Each person will be the leader for a day. Hearing this, everyone expressed that they had no problem with it. Thus, Mu Ling became the team leader for the day. After making the necessary arrangements, he led them inside. Because of his master's orders to protect Muzhou, Mu Ling paid more attention to Muzhou, who was walking at the back. Seeing that Muzhou, who was originally walking in the middle, was gradually falling behind, he gave a look to his junior brother Qing Junan and the others. Chapter 3079. When Fengzhou saw this, he was slightly startled. Then, he smiled and looked at them. Mujo, have you come out to train? Did you just become a golden core cultivator not long ago? Gwaziki asked. He saw that Mujo's cultivation was only at the golden core level. With such strength, he should not be able to enter, but Master let him in. It had to be said that Mujo was really weak. Hearing his words, Fengjiu smiled and replied, yes. Sometimes, I go out to train too. As for the strength of a golden core, it was because her strength of a heavenly god was too high that she was suppressed to the strength of a golden core. In comparison, her strength was really too weak. Do you know the use of the jade pendant? Gwaziki asked again. She smiled and replied, I know. When my life is in danger, I can crush the jade pendant to be teleported out of the mystic realm. You have to keep it well. If you lose the jade pendant, you will have to stay here for a full 3 months. Also, if you encounter danger, your last safeguard will be gone. He reminded her worriedly because he saw that this little junior brother was so dull and weak. He could not help but worry. All right, I will. She nodded. Mujo is not a child. Look at you, you are almost an old mother. The man surnamed Chen smiled and said. Gwaziki smiled and did not say anything. He just walked quietly beside Fengjiu and paid attention to the surrounding movements. The group chatted as they walked forward. Suddenly, Mu Ling and Pei Zishuan, who were walking in front, stopped in their tracks and made a vigilant action. When the others saw this, they quickly turned around and formed a circle behind them. Shaw shaw. The rustling sound came from the dense forest and seemed to be increasing in number. Furthermore, it was coming towards them. Hearing that sound, everyone's expression turned serious. What is that sound? Is it a snake? It's not a snake. It seems like something is coming through the grass. As Gwaziki said, he felt an inexplicable sense of danger. I feel that something is not right. Let's retreat quickly. How can we retreat without seeing what it is? In any case, we should at least figure out what this thing is. The man surnamed Chin said to them, I'll go ahead and take a look. As he spoke, he walked out from the crowd and pushed aside the grass to walk forward. However, the moment he pushed aside the grass, something suddenly pounced on him. He was startled and cried out in alarm. He instinctively waved his palm and quickly retreated. Swish! Swish! Hiss! This is a four-legged smiling snake. Mu Ling exclaimed, his expression changing drastically. When everyone heard his words, their faces turned grave as they looked at the colorful four-legged smiling snakes emerging from the bushes. Each of these four-legged smiling snakes was only the length of a palm. They looked like snakes, but they weren't snakes. Their bodies were colorful, and there were spots on their heads that formed a smiling face. 2 sharp fangs were exposed on their heads. Their mouths were slightly open, and their stomachs were moving as if they were breathing. As soon as these things jumped out, they surrounded them. On the ground and on the trees, these four-legged smiling snakes were everywhere, leaving them with no way out. Fengjiu glanced at those things and reminded, these things are highly poisonous. Be careful, don't get bitten. Chapter 3080. Be careful. With a cry of alarm, everyone quickly attacked those four-legged smiling snakes that pounced on them. Seeing those four-legged smiling snakes pouncing on them without fear of fire, Pei Zishuan couldn't help but curse, damn it. Thank you, Yuziki. The 3 of you, open up a path. Mu Ling shouted in a deep voice. As she was worried that Mujo wouldn't be able to react in time, she didn't dare to leave his side. Instead, she protected him tightly by her side and instructed, Mujo, don't leave my side. Fengjiu raised her blade and killed a few four-legged snakes that were about to bite Mu Ling from the side. She wanted to remind him to take care of himself first. Don't bother about me. But since he had good intentions, she could only respond and follow beside him. Hearing his words, the three of them opened up a path with the help of the others. They shouted to the people behind them, "Escape this way." With that, their figures dashed out first. Everyone quickly retreated. Mu Ling and Pei Zixuan were at the back. The further back they were, the more dangerous it was. Fengjiu looked back worriedly and saw the two of them retreating while killing those four-legged smiling snakes that surrounded them. One of them leaped from the side and bit towards Pei Zixuan, but Pei Zixuan and Mu Ling didn't notice it. At that moment, her hand moved and a silver needle shot out. Whoosh! Pei Zixuan felt a bloodthirsty aura on his neck. When he turned back, he saw that smiling snake opening its mouth and biting towards his neck. Those two sharp fangs that oozed venom caused him to involuntarily shiver. By the time he wanted to dodge, it was already too late. He thought he would be bitten, but who knew that when that four-legged smiling snake neared his neck, its body trembled and fell to the ground. At that moment, he was so nervous that sweat seeped out of his forehead. His heart didn't seem to be beating. But he clearly heard a soft voice brushing past his ear. Lowering his head to look at that four-legged smiling snake, he saw a cold glint under the sunlight. Zixuan. Let's go. Mu Ling pulled him and retreated with him. With a leap, they were already more than 10 meters away, avoiding those four-legged smiling snakes that were chasing after them. Pei Zixuan gathered his thoughts and turned back to look at the people who had already left. He was puzzled. Who was the one who shot that silver needle? Because they had to avoid the four-legged smiling snakes that were chasing after them, they kept moving forward. After a long while, when they entered an area, the four-legged smiling snakes that were chasing after them suddenly stopped and surrounded them. They didn't chase after them, but they didn't leave either. They just stuck out their tongues and stared at them. Those four-legged smiling snakes have stopped. Let's take a rest. Guaziki exhaled lightly, wiped his sweat, and said, "We just came in and we already encountered this four-legged smiling snake. Fortunately, we ran fast enough. If we were bitten, it would be troublesome." Fengjiu looked at the four-legged smiling snakes that had stopped and did not chase after them. He felt that something was wrong. He was afraid that this place was not safe. It was very likely that there was a very powerful vicious beast here. Otherwise, those four-legged smiling snakes would have dared to chase after them. As he was thinking, he heard Mu Ling's voice. Chapter 3081. Hearing his words, everyone's relieved hearts rose again. They looked around and said, "It looks very peaceful here. What danger could there be? No, there's not even a bird here. Those four-legged smiling snakes also don't dare to come over. Looking at the situation, there should be powerful ferocious beasts in this area." Hearing this, no one dared to be careless. Carelessness here could cause death. Then what should we do? There's no way back. The path of retreat is completely blocked by those four-legged smiling snakes. Even if there's danger, we can only go forward. Xiao Kaiji said as he looked ahead and said, "How about this? Let's go forward and take a look." "Let's go. Everyone be careful," Mu Ling said and looked at Fengjiu. "Mujiu, you stay by my side." Fengjiu smiled helplessly. "Eldest senior brother, you don't have to take special care of me. I can take care of myself." Really? Being protected by them like this, she felt that her hands and feet were tied. It was just that her strength was suppressed, it was not that her fighting strength was not good. In here, she could deal with most of the situations. Master said that if anything happens to you, we can't escape the blame when we return. Moreover, you and I are both disciples of the Mu family. It's our duty to take care of you. Come here. Follow me and don't run around. He said in a low voice, not allowing any refusal. Fengjiu had no choice but to walk over and follow him. Regarding this, other than the 4 disciples with the surname Qin who were a little puzzled, the others did not say anything. After all, they had been ordered by their master to take good care of Mu Jiu and not let anything happen to him. Although they did not know why their master valued Mu Jiu so much, since it was their master's order, they naturally obeyed. They walked forward carefully. Even the slightest movement could make them alert. However, after walking for a while, it was still quiet and there was no danger. Only then did they let out a sigh of relief. Fengjiu looked around and saw that there were many spirit herbs in this area. His eyes lit up. There are spirit herbs here. I'll go pick them. Senior brothers, sit down and rest. Hearing this, everyone nodded. Ever since they entered, they had been chased by the 4-legged smiling snakes. Since it was quiet here, they would sit down and rest for a while. Otherwise, it would be unbearable to be on high alert all the time. Mu Jiu, are you going to pick the spiritual herbs? We'll accompany you. Gretchen and Lin Yusher came to Fengjiu's side and said. Sure. Fengjiu smiled and squatted down beside a stalk of spiritual medicine under the tree. He carefully dug out the stalk of spiritual medicine. Seeing this, the 2 of them looked around to see if there were any other spiritual medicine. After all, they weren't alchemists or alchemists. They could recognize ordinary spirit medicines, but they couldn't recognize some of the rarer spirit medicines. Therefore, after seeing the spirit medicines that Mu Jiu had dug up, they began to search accordingly. Do you want this? Did we dig the right one? The 2 of them handed over the 2 stalks of spirit herbs they had dug up. Yes, this is it. Thank you. Fengjiu took it with a smile and thanked him. Mu Jiu, what kind of spirit medicine is this? Is there any use for it? Gretchen asked. This is a spirit medicine that can stop bleeding. It's more effective than ordinary spirit medicine to stop bleeding, she explained with a smile. Chapter 3082. You can say that. She chuckled and dug up a few stalks of spirit herbs under the tree, keeping them in her space. Don't go too far. Just pick around here, Mu Ling shouted. Okay. The few of them answered. After picking some spirit herbs around them, they walked over to rest. Fengjiu took a sip of water. Seeing that everyone was staring at him, he smiled and asked, What's wrong? Why don't you look tired at all? Guiziki curiously inquired. After the battle, in addition to the fact that they had been sprinting, they were all extremely nervous. Their auras were all somewhat unstable, yet Mu Jiu's countenance was as calm as ever. He didn't even sweat a single drop, and he even had the energy to pluck the spirit herbs. Hearing this, Fengjiu chuckled. My stamina is good, so I'm not tired. So you're saying that our stamina is not as good as yours? The disciple with the surname Qin chuckled. He looked at Fengjiu and said, With your small body, you look like a gust of wind could blow you away. But you actually said that your stamina is good. But seeing that you haven't even panted, maybe your stamina is better than ours. Everyone laughed. After resting for a while, they all stood up. Then let's continue moving forward. Try to be as quiet as possible. Even if there are some powerful ferocious beasts in this area, it's best not to alarm them. Okay. Everyone answered and walked forward together, their footsteps light. But at this moment, the ground shook and they stopped. Xiao Kaiji quickly lay on the ground to listen. After a while, he got up and said, "There are more than 10 disciples running this way. There should be a ferocious beast chasing behind them. This ferocious beast is huge. Every step it takes causes the ground to shake slightly. I don't know if it's a ferocious beast from this area. If it's not, I'm afraid that this movement will alarm the ferocious beasts in this area." Hearing this, their faces became serious. "Let's go and take a look." With that, everyone rushed towards the direction of the sound. In the dense forest, the weeds that were half the height of a person seemed to have never been stepped on before. The dozen people running in panic looked back as they ran forward. At their height, a 5 to 6 meter tall giant beast was chasing after them. The giant beast's body was covered with hard spikes. It was a four-legged beast, but it walked on two legs like a human. Its two hind legs were thick and heavy, and when it stepped on the ground, it made a heavy thud. The ground also sank, leaving a deep footprint. Its front claws were short and small, but they had sharp claws. Its head was also incomparably huge, with a long and sharp mouth, revealing a row of sharp and long teeth. Its eyes were even bigger than fists, and they were bloodshot, incomparably ferocious. Roar! A deafening roar of a beast rang out. As the roar spread out, the powerful pressure formed a sound wave that caused the dozen or so people who were running for their lives to cover their ears and scream. Some of them were tripped by branches and fell into the weeds. The ferocious beast caught up from behind and lifted its huge foot to stomp on the disciples on the ground. The disciple turned around to look and was so scared that his face changed drastically. Relying on his survival instinct, he quickly rolled to the side and rolled down the slope. However, because of this, he managed to keep his life. After the giant beast missed him, it abandoned him and chased after the disciple in front of him. Chapter 3083. The disciple who had rolled down the slope hit a rock and heard a cracking sound. He groaned and stood up from the ground. When he touched his hand, he knew it was broken. He did not escape but followed closely behind. That giant beast was too strong and could not be killed by one person. However, if more than 10 people calmed down and worked together, they should have a chance of winning. They could only blame themselves for meeting the giant beast when they were unprepared and being chased by it. That was why they ran wildly. They came here to train, not to escape. If they did not face it head-on, this would become their inner demon in the future. On the other side, Mu Ling and the rest were walking towards the source of the sound. When they heard the giant beast's roar, their eardrums hurt. However, they steadied their minds and used their spiritual energy to protect them. When they looked up, they were shocked. Hiss! This beast is so huge. It's at least 5 or 6 meters tall. What kind of beast is this? Why are there spikes on its body? Those are not spikes. They look like its horns. If I'm not wrong, this should be the iron-hide scarlet dragon that I've heard of before. It's a level 5 divine beast. Mu Ling said in a low voice and looked at the giant beast with a serious expression. Ironhide scarlet dragon. That level 5 divine beast that is invulnerable? Gwaziki was shocked and his expression turned ugly. That's right. Mu Ling nodded. Then what do we do? What are our chances of winning against it? Lin Yushir asked and looked at them. Can we deal with it if we work together? That's hard to say. As Mu Ling said that, he saw more than 10 disciples rushing towards them. They were disciples of the immortal sect. Run! Those disciples also saw them and shouted at them from afar. They did not stop but sped up and ran forward. That's the iron-hide scarlet dragon. We are not its match. If you don't want to die, run. Mu Ling and the rest were stunned when they saw them running in the direction of the four-legged, smiling snake. Their expressions changed. Don't go in that direction. Come back quickly. However, how could the panicking people hear what they were saying? They only wanted to get rid of the huge beast that was chasing them as soon as possible. A level 5 divine beast, moreover, it was the extremely powerful Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. They didn't want to fight it at all. Kai Jiguan, Yu Yushir, go and stop them. Don't let them pounce on the four-legged smiling snake. Mu Ling immediately ordered. At the same time, he took out his long sword and activated his spiritual aura. He leaped towards the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. Seeing this, Pei Zishuan and the others quickly drew their swords to help Mu Ling. Several of them attacked together, and the Ironhide Scarlet Dragon had no choice but to stop. Although its body was huge, its reaction was very fast. As it dodged their attacks, it also attacked. Fengjiu took a look and saw Gretchen and the rest chasing after those people, while Mu Ling and the rest surrounded the huge beast with swords. One of the disciples chasing after them had one hand drooping weakly, but he still attacked with his sword. Seeing this, she pondered for a moment. If it was a rank 5 divine beast with so many of them joining forces, it was not impossible for them to take it down. However, this rank 5 divine beast was an Ironhide Scarlet Dragon. Its combat strength was extremely strong, and it was impervious to weapons. It would be very difficult for them to win. You're tuning into the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.